The Lord be with you. Hear we from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus journeyed to a city called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd accompanied him. As he drew near to the gate of the city, a man who had died was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. A large crowd from the city was with her. When the Lord saw her, he was moved with pity for her and said to her, "Do not weep." He stepped forward and touched the coffin. At this the bearers halted, and he said, "Young man, I tell you, arise." The dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him to his mother. Fear seized them all, and they glorified God, exclaiming, "A great prophet has arisen in our midst, and God has visited his people." This report about him spread through the whole of Judea and in all the surrounding region. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Some years ago, an American artist, a young man, decided to go to Paris to begin his career. And his goal was to meet the rich, the famous, and the talented so that they could support his artistic endeavors. And it so happened that one afternoon he was in a museum and he bumped into some other young people. He began to talk to them, and they were exactly what he was looking for. They invited him to a castle, to a costume party in 2 weeks. They said, "Here you'll meet everybody who's anybody in the art world." So he was very excited. And being an artist, he began to work on his costume for that party. When the day the party arrived, he was very, very excited. And he got to the castle. He climbed up the stairs. He went through the large doors. He stood overlooking the ballroom, ready to descend. And as he looked out, he realized that it was indeed a costume party, but the theme was a medieval court. And there he saw kings and queens and princes and princesses dressed in all their finery. And he was standing there, 6'2", 150 pounds, dressed as a lobster. Red tights, 2 giant styrofoam claws, antenna. He was as red in the face as he was in his body. And he looked out, he could see what was going on, and he prayed in the same way we would. "Oh my God." And then he decided to act. He had come there with a purpose, to meet these people, to get to know them, to engage with them. And so he decided to act. And he took one step and the next and the next. He got to the ballroom. The band came to a screeching halt. There was dead silence. People parted as he walked in. And finally one brave woman said, "And what are you supposed to do?" And he said, "I am the court lobster." Well, they loved their jester. In fact, he met more people than if he had come dressed properly. And the story continues because people are always upset after a story. What happened next? He lived happily ever after. I tell you this story because the dynamic of standing at the top of a staircase deciding whether or not to take the first step is the story of each one of our vocations. God equips us, sometimes appropriately, sometimes not, but whatever gifts and talents we're given, God asks us to walk into the room and do what we were put here to accomplish, which is our mission, which is to be love and spread love and share the message of Jesus Christ. In our gospel and readings today, we see this dynamic repeated. Elijah the prophet sees what is. The boy is sick. The boy is dying. It's upsetting for him. He prays quite honestly to God, very forthrightly. Are you even going to do this? And then he acts. He prays, and a miracle occurs. In a similar way, in the gospel today, Jesus sees a tragedy. A child is dead. A mother is weeping. He sees this. The gospel says that his heart is moved with pity, which is a word that means to the deepest part of his being, he's disturbed. Jesus sees, he prays, and he acts, and a miracle occurs. It's the pattern of all of our lives, to be the lobster. No matter how ridiculous at times we may feel, how afraid, how out of place, God calls us in every situation in our life to see what is, to pray about what's possible, and to take an action to make the difference. That's our mission in Jesus Christ. We gather today to give thanks for that dynamic in all of our lives, to gather at this Eucharist, which itself means to give thanks for our gifts and talents, to thank God for those many moments when we stepped out, fearful and afraid, into the crowd to share our gifts and talents, our lobsterness with one another. We also gather tonight to celebrate the ministry of Monsignor Carroll, Father Jack, Jack Carroll, Jack, and a few names I call him that I'm not sharing with you. If there was ever a lobster who went to the party, he's right here. In fact, when not because his face is always red, not because he had a red Monsignor robe, but because when I read that story, I thought of him immediately.